What is this, a picnic? The park was quiet that afternoon. Soft sunlight filtered through the tall, swaying trees, spilling gold over the winding paths. A faint breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming azaleas. In the distance, children's laughter drifted across the air, light and carefree, untouched by the dangers of dungeons, monsters, or hunters. Sung Jinwoo walked at a leisurely pace, his hands buried deep in his pockets, his steps unhurried for once. Beside him, Lee Joohee kept a small, comfortable distance, her face lit by the same golden light. She was smiling, but it was not the kind of smile one wore for joy. It was fragile, as if it might shatter with a single wrong word. "Do you remember?" she asked softly, her eyes scanning the path ahead. "That time in the low-rank raid when you gave me this?" Her fingers brushed against something in her pocket, and after a moment she pulled it out, a dull E-rank essence stone, the one Jinwoo had given her long ago. He stopped walking, his gaze fixed on the small stone in her palm. "You kept it?" "I never sold it." Her voice trembled, but it wasn't from fear. "I thought maybe I'd keep it as a reminder of that day, of you." A silence settled between them, filled only by the distant sound of wind in the leaves. Jinwoo studied her expression, those brown eyes that had seen him bloodied and beaten more times than anyone should have to witness. "But I think this is where my road ends," she continued, lowering her gaze. "I've been thinking for a while now. I'm not cut out for this, for fighting, for facing death every day. I'm a healer, but even so, I've always been afraid." Jinwoo said nothing, but inside, a quiet ache stirred. He remembered the trembling hands that had healed him in that cursed double dungeon. How her voice had shaken, but she had stayed until the very end. "You're different, Jinwoo," she said, smiling faintly. "You never stop moving forward, no matter what's in front of you. I've seen it in your eyes. Even when you were barely able to stand, you didn't give up. I admired that. Maybe that's why I kept this stone." She placed it in his hand, curling his fingers around it. "I'm retiring as a hunter. Going home. Maybe I'll find something else to do. Something that doesn't involve blood and fear. But I hope I'll see you again someday." And with that, she stepped back, gave him one last smile, and turned away, her figure slowly swallowed by the golden light of the park. Jinwoo stood still for a long while, the essence stone warm in his palm. He didn't call after her. He didn't try to change her mind. He understood. But the moment was interrupted by another memory, one that was far darker. It had been after their last raid when Woo Jinchul pulled him aside, his voice low and heavy. "There's something you should know, Sung Jinwoo." The man's eyes were sharp, his presence like a wall of steel. "Hwang Dongsoo," Jinchul continued, "is looking for you." Jinwoo's gaze hardened instantly. "You remember his brother, Hwang Dongsuk," Jinchul said, his tone like stone scraping against stone. "You were there. You know what happened." "I do," Jinwoo said quietly. "Well, Dongsoo doesn't care about details. He's an S-rank hunter, and the law can't touch people like him. If he believes you're responsible—" Jinchul let the thought hang in the air like the blade of a guillotine. "My advice? Be careful. Or better yet, leave the country for a while. An S-rank hunter." Even the words carried weight. In Jinwoo's current state, facing someone like that would be suicide. But instead of fear, what he felt was the sharp pull of determination. If anything, this was just another reason to grow stronger. That resolve followed him a few days later when he stood with Yoo Jinho in front of a glowing C-rank gate. Their strike team was a strange collection of mismatched hunters, men and women who, for one reason or another, had been left on the sidelines. Injuries, inexperience, personal demons, and one high school girl who seemed far too young for any of this. Han Song-yi. Jinwoo didn't know yet that she was a friend of his sister, Sung Jina. He only saw an E-rank who was acting far too casual for someone about to face a dungeon. When she scoffed at him for calling her a kid, he didn't bother to hide the edge in his voice. "You're E-rank, and you've never been in a raid before. Try to remember that." Her mouth snapped shut, but her eyes flashed with defiance. Jinwoo didn't press further. He turned to the group, his voice calm but firm. "Only Jinho and I will be entering the dungeon. You stay here. 3,000,000 won each per raid just to stand guard. That's the deal." The hunters exchanged skeptical glances. It sounded insane. But when Jinho handed them the contracts, complete with non-disclosure clauses, the lure of easy money silenced their doubts. Inside the gate, The air was heavy with the smell of stone and mana. Jinho clanked along beside him, clad in armor so ridiculously overbuilt it made Jinwoo stop in his tracks. "Take it off," Jinwoo said flatly. "But the whole thing." Jinho groaned but began removing the ornate plates, piece by piece, until only the helmet remained. "You can keep that," Jinwoo said dryly. With that settled, they moved in deeper. The dungeon was teeming with goblins. They barely had time to screech before Jinwoo's blade cut through them in flashes of steel. Each movement was clean, precise, without hesitation. By the time they reached the hobgoblin boss, the fight was over in a single decapitating slash. Outside, the team waited, some lounging, some smoking, all expecting to be there for hours. When Jinwoo and Jinho emerged barely an hour later, there was a beat of stunned silence before someone muttered, "No way." It wasn't a fluke. They moved to the next gate, then the next, clearing record time. Snakes, scorpions, werewolves, one after another, fell beneath Jinwoo's blade. With every kill, his power grew, his skills leveled. New abilities bloomed like sharp-edged flowers. Advanced dagger wielding, fatal strike, dash. But the more he grew, the more he realized how far he still had to go. If he was to survive what was coming, he needed more. Meanwhile, in the towering headquarters of the White Tiger Guild, manager An Sang-min leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes at the report in his hand. Yoo Jinho bought the rights to multiple C-rank gates for 150 million won? His assistant, Hun Kichul, nodded. An's mind was already racing. The name Sung Jinwoo wasn't new to him. Double Dungeon, Hwang Dongsoo's strike team, Kang Tae-shik, the same man, walking away from death 3 times over. And now, clearing dungeons with only Yoo Jinho in tow? That wasn't luck. That was power. I want to see him for myself, An decided. When An and Kichul arrived at the gate, they were greeted by an unusual sight. A ragtag band of hunters sitting around like they were on a picnic, snacking, chatting, doing anything but raiding. Han Song-yi approached them, her chin tilted high. "Restricted area. You can't just hang around here." "You're a hunter?" Kichul asked, blinking. She crossed her arms. "What's it to you?" An smirked slightly. He already knew what was happening. Jinwoo was inside, alone. When Jinwoo emerged later, An made his move. Over coffee, he spoke of the White Tiger Guild's prestige, of the opportunities they could offer. Then came the bait. Double whatever Yujin Construction promised. Jinwoo didn't even blink. "My deal's worth 30 billion won." An choked on his coffee. He stammered about needing approval for that kind of money. Jinwoo was already standing. But as he passed, his hand clamped down on An's shoulder and his voice dropped into something cold. "Stop prying into me." When An turned, Jinwoo was gone. The faint sting on his cheek told him everything. Stealth. And that cut. He raised a hand to touch it, only for Jinwoo to reappear, slipping a small vial into his hand. "Open your mouth," Jinwoo said. Before An could think, a health potion slid down his throat, knitting the wound instantly. A moment later, they were making a deal. 3 gates, 300 million each. An knew he was overpaying, but he couldn't pass them up. Later, when he learned cheaper gates had been available all along, he could only laugh bitterly. Outplayed. But he had Jinwoo's number now. That, he told himself, was worth the loss. And so, with the wind rushing through the open window of a red truck, Jinwoo drove down the highway toward his next challenge. The job change quest awaited. A new path was opening. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the faint, electric hum of anticipation, the kind that only came before a battle that could change everything.